Welcome back to 15. I'm Luke. I've got Dan Wade with me, and
Boy!
today we are ranking films, but not just any film, the top 10 Pixar originals. So we're not doing
Originals.
sequels, we're not doing prequels. So Dan, Toy Story 3 could have made it maybe. Incredibles
No,
2
because that does not equals what you're talking about.
doesn't equal sequels, which is not what we want. But Dan, if we were doing sequels, would Cars 2 have made your top 10?
By default.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean by that way, but yeah, that's very true. So we basically
No,
done
it
our
wouldn't.
own independent lists, and Cars One hasn't got a shot in France either. We've got our own independent list. We've merged them together, and so we have a 15 top 10, which is basically not suited either of us. So we're gonna kick things off with number 10, Dan, Coco.
I see what you've done. Okay,
Make the
good.
make the case for Coco.
I really love
Ooh, that
the.
was a horrible intake of breath. Let's not do that again.
Let's cut that. Bleep. We do our own sound effects on this show. We
But
don't
do you
do
want it
anything
cut? Do you want it
post.
cut or not? Because I
Yeah,
can
cut
either
it.
cut it or
Yeah,
you make me jokes.
cut all of this. This can all just go.
Go.
Coco. I love the look about it. I think sort of cinematographically, it's perhaps one of the best. Especially when he crosses into the other side of the
Oh
underworld,
yeah.
and you sort of see this sort of shanty town of death. It looks amazing, and I think it's one of the best kind of visually. And the music I also think is very good. It's very Mexican, captures that.
Let me jump on some of those points then. Okay, so I'm going to
Okay.
fire back a bit here
Oh, because
because
he doesn't like it.
You know I'm not a Coco fan at all. Not at all. That's too harsh. It's like my 11th spot.
Yeah.
But for me, you make a good point. It looks beautiful. Correct. For me, this is
Yeah.
just aesthetic. That is
Okay.
all this film is. Um, I don't want to be too harsh because I've got all my points are negative, but I knew you were going to bring the noise and like fight Coco's corner because you got it like 8 or something. But for
I
me,
did,
it's
yeah.
like everything in this film
Nine, but
we've seen Pixar do before. We've
yeah.
seen
I,
Pixar do
I
it
don't think it's
before.
perhaps
Style over
original.
substance. No, am I being too mean? I'm being too mean. And the
I think
music, I'm not a musical fan.
you're not. I think
Bit
it,
gay in
but
it.
then I think it captures that sense of that culture, which is very rhythmical, and um,
Tell us a little bit more about their culture.
I would, but we haven't got the time.
Oh, very good. Just one final thing. I feel like I don't want to be too negative. Grandma's awesome. Obviously, Grandma's an amazing character, but also seen
Yeah,
that character 12 times before in Pixar.
yeah.
But it finally comes down to the ending, and it's just like a tiger, isn't it? At the end, it's just like a crap baddie, and it doesn't really work. And it's just like,
No, what?
but nice
There's no
fam.
tiger. What are you talking about?
It's like a
Tiger?
final scene, and it's like against the big sort of big cat or big tiger, isn't it?
Yeah, the
It's like
cat's on the good
moving.
side.
Oh, is it? I thought that was a bad.
No,
Can't remember this film. Watched it on a plane about 4 years ago.
evidently. You weren't watching Planes or The Jungle Book. Think of it. Bagheera and Shere Khan.
So that's Coco. One final comment about Coco, Dan. Why did you like
Okay.
it? Why is it in top 10?
I've just told you the look and the music.
Perfect. Looking music. Fair enough. I was trying to end on a nice note and not be too negative, but
No, it is. I think it looks great, and I think it's fun.
fun. Correct. Another film that's fun, segue, is number 9 on our list, is Monsters Inc.
Yeah,
Monsters Inc. only at 9. I had this a few spots higher.
yeah. I
Uh,
had it. I had it at 10, which is what probably dragged it right down.
Dan, isn't this just the double act of the ages? This is the best double act Pixar have done. I know you're a
Yeah.
big Ratatouille fan, but Remy and Linguini doesn't come close to these
No,
two. Come
God
on.
no, God no.
These two are the eyes. Genuinely funny film. And I think for a film about monsters, it had to have good villains. And God, it's got good villains.
Unfortunately, I watched this quite recently,
Oh
and
no, does it not hold up?
it didn't hold up for me.
Oh
It
no.
it felt very pitched at kids, and I think
Yeah.
it's amazing in that it's so nostalgic, and I look on this film so fondly, like you. And my overriding thought always is, my instinct is with it was always, how amazing is Mike and Sully, and that moment with Boo and Doctor, not Mister the Crab Baddie. What's he
Yeah,
called?
Dr. Ockman and his
Yeah,
pizzas.
yeah.
Whatever he's
You,
called.
you
Yeah, I know what
kind
you
of
mean.
think, oh, I think actually, no, I'm being harsh. I think he doesn't hold up as a villain. I don't think he's.
What? Randall does. Surely Randall
Randall
does.
does, yeah, Randall does, but he is like the big boss, the sort of twisting of the knife, if you like.
Yeah, but
He
he's like
doesn't.
he doesn't have to be too much of a villain. He just turns at the end and he's like shows us some horrible moments and can really scare the kid. And
Yeah, it just. I don't know.
does it not hold up?
I think it's a bit too. Didn't quite hold up for me the second time I watched it. I look at it very fondly with a lot of nostalgia, and I think that's its best thing. And I 100% agree with you that and actually hadn't crossed my mind, but you are right. They're the best double act in Pixar.
Let's jump on to number 8. Now I tell you what, if Monsters Inc. was too low, Up is definitely too low. Up's at 8. I had Up at 6. It was at 5 for a while, and I dropped it down to 6.
Yeah, I'm a bit harsh on Up.
You have pulled Up down. So let's start with some negative. I'll push some positive in there.
Okay. But I have to sort of start with a positive to then go on to my negative. It's the montage to end all montages. It's brilliant. It's the best montage, probably.
Dan, it's the openings that end all openings. I don't.
Yeah.
That's how good it is. I don't know.
It is an amazing
film starts better than that.
No, and after that, it's like when we wrote our sitcom, Luke. Episode 1 was amazing, and as we went on through series 1, it all just sort of trailed off. And for me, it slightly trails off and loses that real sense of I don't know what it is, that je ne sais quoi, the flair of the opening. However, it's a fantastic adventure film, but again, I don't know, does it become a little juvenile? I don't know.
I agree that it's a bit daft, it's a bit silly, it's colourful, it's messy, and it's sort of all those things in more than one in terms of it's a little bit, I don't know, less than some of its parts towards the end. I understand that, but I've always said the highs this hits are as some of the highest Pixar ever hits. And so I would take a film that's a little bit all over the place, but the highs are 10s over a film that's a solid 7 or 8. So that's why I have it higher than the other ones.
I think certainly you're right in there are films that probably like our poster boys, like we'll come to Toy Story and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I would take this over Toy Story.
I know you would, but and I certainly think that image of the house when it's in the clouds, that's like iconic Pixar, right? And just the style of the balloon, you could see that anywhere and go, that's Up. Like visually as a reference point.
You would with balloons anyway. Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, fair enough.
I take your point. It hits higher. It's more of a curve, isn't it? The curve is greater on this film than perhaps others.
When was the last time you watched Up? And as a sit down and up? Because the last time I watched it, I bawled my eyes out so much. I was wailing at the start, and I haven't seen it since. And that was probably about 4 years ago. And I'm worried to revisit it because I know I'll be even worse as I get older. I think I'll react even worse. Yeah.
Have I told you that? So I can just a very quick little anecdote. When I hadn't seen Up, and my cousin went to see Up right before me, and I went round and he said he'd seen Up, and I was like, oh, cool. Just like tell me. And I'm a bit older than my cousin. Just tell me what it's like. Yeah, but like don't give anything away. Right, and this I can almost verbatim tell you. She says, "Well, the film opens right, and you're like looking at a building site, and then you go along, and there's like a tiny little house in the middle of the building site, and then this like man walks up to it and like opens the gate."
At this point,
and I just like, "Oh right, cool, yeah."
So he did all the description for the blind, essentially.
Yeah,
now you're looking at a.
It's like, God.
Okay, let's get on to number 7. I think I had this at number 7 in my list as well. Actually, I don't know where you had it, but Inside Out is number 7, which is one that the critics friggin' love.
They do.
Everyone loves a bit of Inside Out. And we do. 7's a really good spot. There's a lot of good films here.
Actually, looking at my list, I had it slightly higher. I probably would drop it down and replace it with something else. So I hope that doesn't screw the algorithm too much, but I don't think it was because you love the other film. Anyway, I think conceptually brilliant, and I think that's something that can be thrown at quite a few Pixar films. But I think this one, the fact that it was so modern in that what it was trying to achieve, that coupled with that concept kind of is its brilliance in its own right. The idea of mental health feels really fresh, feels important that it's tackling that. But again, doing it in a really approachable way, something very grown up, centered at kids.
Yeah, you pretty much touched on all my main points there as well. Like, essentially, it demands so much from children. This film, I didn't watch it as a child, you know, I was older when I watched this film. I imagine as a child, I'd love to know the impact it had on me because it's so audacious. And also this idea of high concept. Like, there's a few Pixar films that just sort of raise above the parapet there. Like Wally's crazy high concept. This Is Soul is probably the other one that you can
Yeah,
chuck into that
I would
bracket.
say those
But
three
like,
would be.
it lends a visual design to that sometimes when it breaks sort of form. And the only thing you need to know is Bing Bong on the rocket. I mean, come on, that's all you need for this film.
Yeah,
Yeah, great film.
yeah,
Do you think the characters are slightly, by their nature,
annoying.
slightly one-dimensional? Yeah, a little
Yeah,
bit annoying, right?
yeah. It's that sort of film. I think this is greater than the sum of its parts in a way.
Because the
Um,
characters are greater. Great.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like Joy is too happy. Sad is the only one any adult will
Joy is
ever
too
be.
happy. You know, I thought you were going to go through all of them then, like, unironically. Well, Joy's too happy. Sad, she's just miserable, bitch.
No, I was going to say sad is
Literally.
probably the only one I actually like. Yeah, I get it. Like
Yeah.
exhaustion.
Oh, for hanging out with them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah,
fucking hell,
good
love
point.
that.
Right, okay, let's get to number 6 then. And this is
Yeah,
because you rocketed this one up. Rocketed, probably, so to speak, with good old Buzz Lightyear. But Toy Story is at number
yeah.
6 on the list.
Again, your reasoning of like um the highs of Up ranking it higher. Without Toy Story, I feel like we don't have Pixar. It's the OG, and it does stand the test of time. I
Yeah.
take your point. I understand exactly why you have it lower in your
No,
films.
obviously it's important and it's a classic. Let's
Yeah.
take that as read. Now, the only thing I would say is it just doesn't,
Watchability.
because it was first, it doesn't have that same satirical nature, that daring, that incredible humor that the other ones do. But that's just by its nature. It was the first one, you
I
know,
th-
it's the flag bearer. All
but
the great
also
stuff sort of,
isn't that kind of, I know we won't touch on the sequels, but that's why Toy Story 2
oh,
and Toy Story 3
yeah,
are as good if not
I
better,
think
because
superior. Yeah.
this is the groundwork that they all then become. Do you know what I mean? Every time this one pushes, okay, what can Pixar do? Okay, this worked, we can play
Hmm.
on that. Next time it's okay, this works, we can play on that, and again and again and again. Well, four times.
Hmm.
The
No,
fourth
no,
one's
it's
shit.
true though. But yeah, but
Um,
it's true for the rest of the
yeah.
Pixar catalog, 1,000,000%. Like, and don't get
Um,
me wrong, this is probably the biggest hot take I have, having this at like 9 for me. But
yeah.
it's purely because when it comes down to it, there was 8 other films I'd rather watch right now.
Okay, that's
So that's
fair.
all I had. That's
Yeah.
the only thing. And the characters are great. Wheezy,
Yeah.
great character.
Yeah.
I'm keep thinking of Prickle Pants, but he's not from this one.
Yeah.
But he's doing, but you know what I mean? Like the
And
dynamics
Wheezy was
great.
from the
And
second one, but yeah. Name one for the
no, I
first.
think he was also in the first. I think he was a tiny bit in the first, wasn't he? When
It
the
probably
packing
was.
and the
I
moving.
think
I
so,
think.
yeah.
But yeah, great film. Great film.
Wheezy is a genius character.
Yeah, and he's got asthma and he's a crooner, isn't he? Yeah,
Yeah, it's
he's
brilliant.
he's a good character. He should have had a spin-off. Okay, let's get to. Are we in top 5? Yeah, we are. Top 5 now. Here we go.
Ding, ding, ding.
Serious. Now we've got Soul at number 5, so very high up.
So you put this high then, because this was only
I
one,
did number
two.
3 for me.
So this was 7th for me, and you had
Oh
it
right,
at
so there
3.
you go. Meet in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe it's a touch of recency biased here, but no, I think I would.
Do you know
still
what my
stick with it
notice for
3.
this?
It should have
If
died.
only he had died. Yeah.
We didn't have to die. Just cut to black. Cut to
If
black.
he'd have gone, it probably would have been 2, because nothing can top my 1. But
Oh yeah. It would be. It
But-
would probably, no, it'd probably still be 3 even then because I don't. I'm a top.
well,
2
well,
on the
yeah, I
list.
probably would have put it. I'd probably agree with you that it's 3. This had the potential to be everything that Inside Out is and more. Such a grown-up concept like death and life fulfillment. And if only he died.
If only he
If
died.
only died.
One thing I want to talk about. I think we talked about this last time we touched it on the podcast, but the lighting in this film is crazy good. So it's better than most films can achieve with lighting. The way it uses, like Inside Out, does how it changes form. The way it does that with the characters up in heaven, so to speak, those sort of guardians who are gatekeepers.
Yeah.
Terry, the New Zealand character, awesome. And this is just not a kids' film. I think, plain and simple, this is not a kids' film at all.
Yeah.
Kids might get something out of this, but this is very much for the adults that are taking the kids to the cinema because it's
And
once
that's
again high concept.
and
Doing
that's
something
why-
that,
Oh, go
it's knowing that what you love is not actually what you're meant to do. That's just far too advanced for children to ascertain at under the age of 10.
Yeah. It's smooth as well, isn't it?
Mm.
Everything has that sort of, and I
Hmm.
suppose because it's jazz, you've got to. But when you
Hmm.
think of jazz, you think of sort of velvety coffee and sort of that sort of smooth, luxurious. It does feel. I've just got those images of when he goes back and he's in the cat and he's looking around his apartment, and everything just feels really kind of tactile and
Hmm.
very sort of unctuous. Sort of the richness within the imagery there is really, really good.
Oh, it's a good film. Very, very, very good film. Okay, let's get to now. This is technically the top three because we have a joint third place here.
Yeah.
So let's start off with Wally, Pixar's most
Ah,
ambitious film to date. Tell us a
lovely.
little bit about Wally.
Lovely. I think Wally, first of all, me and you we're probably the greatest flag bearers that I know of Wally. If you ask any run of the mill character, any person on the street, any, average Joe, where Wally ranks. Oh, Wally, that was, yeah. This does not get the recognition it deserves
I
for
think
me.
amongst critics it probably does, but again, I take your point against like the common parlance, common fare.
Yeah.
Um, I agree. The first, once again, an incredible opening. Like the first 25 minutes where we've just got beeps and beep beep beep, beep that's all you've got, and the odd VHS tape where you hear a little bit of music. But I think there's something where is it only 20% of the actual sound in this film is dialogue. It's something like that, and
Phenomenal, right?
once again, incredibly crazy, ambitious,
I
genius. And
put,
it's a film that's only going to get more pertinent as it ages with
yeah.
sustainability. This is going to come back into the
Well,
zeitgeist.
this is what, 2008, I want to say.
Yeah, 2009 probably
Yeah.
around. It's definitely around there.
But again, this is what I think this is, firmly in Pixar's golden age. And it's that thing of what's the most unlikely thing? Let's flip it on its head. So in a world or centered around humans and world and humans looking for a lost planet, the most human thing is a robot. Like that concept, when you write that idea on that post-it note, that's the light bulb moment, and this
Hmm.
delivers that in bucketful. You're right, the personification and the humanization of Wally and Eva, and you can still hear that voice, Eva, Wally, like that is just
Hmm.
heartbreaking, isn't it? Like, I suppose as as a voice actor's performance, they, again, that you see it in the Marvel films, the I Am Groot, Vin Diesel, and he asked whoever the director was, to James, whatever he's called, to put what every meaning meant behind every word. I'm not trying to link the two, but I'm just
Right.
saying that
Okay.
as a voice actor, to create that level of connection with robots and non-humans, I think is really special.
I love that you said that because I've literally written down here Pixar are the kings of anthropomorphization. Like
All right, yeah.
this is what they do better than anyone, and Wally is the best example of that from the Pixar catalog. And also the
And
other
the
thing I wanted
story
to
holds up. Sorry to,
yes,
but
story is pertinent, still holds up. And the other thing is, and I think this is true actually thinking about it now, this is true for pretty much every single film we mentioned here, is animation helps the story. There's not a single good Pixar film that would have been better as a live action film. Not a single, not though I don't want to spoil what comes ahead of this, so let's not mention those, but let's just look back what we just mentioned.
yeah,
Toy Story, you couldn't do. I mean, the ones I've got, they were all ahead. But Toy Story, you couldn't do. Monsters Inc., you couldn't do. Up, you
no,
couldn't do. Inside Out, conceptually, you couldn't do. Like all of them are excelled because of the animation. One bad thing about Wally that I've always thought is because I know the humans are meant to be the villains because it's our greed and our sort of those seven sins and just getting lazy. But the villain in Wally, sort of this sort of Hal figure who's like maybe like a space odyssey
what,
kind of
auto?
rip off. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a character. It's not a great villain, is it? There's not a great villain here, and I like
No,
great villain.
but then don't you remember? I can really clearly remember, and maybe it's just like a supplanted memory, but I can remember watching the film, and when Captain, whatever he says, looks behind and sees Auto behind all of them,
All of them. Yeah, that's nice. I
and
saw this in the cinema. I remember going to the cinema to watch
yeah,
this.
I think the villain holds up because the villain is humanity, isn't it?
Yes, I guess that is the whole point.
The Americans, Luke.
Yes, but yeah, very beautiful film,
Yeah,
and this will stand the test of time, very much so.
100%. So
Okay,
that was
tied
joint third,
joint third with
right?
Finding Nemo,
Yeah,
which
I
was non,
probably
which is my number
would have.
two.
Yeah, I
My
probably
number
should have
two.
bumped this higher than I did. It is better than Inside Out, actually, 100%. This is my
Finding
top five.
so Finding Nemo for me, this was the first time I had any. I think I mentioned some podcast before, maybe, but it's the first time I had any concept of DVD. This is the first
Oh
DVD we
right,
ever
okay.
had. We got a new big TV, and it had a DVD menu, and I think the DVD menu used to be the aquarium,
It was, yes.
and it blew me away. I genuinely thought we'd bought an aquarium in the lounge. So I would have been about 7. I probably would have been about
Yeah,
7
I
years
think
of
it's
age. Yeah, 6.
2004, so
Oh,
you
is
would
it?
be
So,
seven.
well, yeah, well, maybe a touch older or so. But it
Could have
blew
been
my
early.
mind. But to me, this film, I've got so much to say, so I'll let you jump in a second. But like, I've always wanted to be a dad, always wanted to be a father, and this just storyline just resonated with me so
I've always wanted
much.
to be a mum.
And just the whole idea of this film really puts you in like I was always drawn to films that were kind of scary, not obviously scary, but for a kid, scary. This film has scary moments, and I think it's
Mm.
really important to have those in these like seminal movies for children. And I'll let you talk a little bit about because I've got more to talk about. But yeah, Finding Nemo, I've got such high
I
regard.
think one thing I think that again stands out, and it's probably sort of up there with Up, is its cinematography, and it's one of the first films I think of that really kind of tackles with underwater and how beautiful that looks. And when they do the express highway with the turtles like
Yeah, on the
that
current. Yeah.
on the current, I just really, that always really resonated with me, the kind of how they captured the ocean and its vastness. And like when Nemo swims out to get the boat, touch the boat, and then they
Of
pan
course.
back and you've got the reef and the darkness, the
Mm-hmm.
fear of when they're swimming through the mines with the submarines and everything. I
Mm-hmm.
think as well, something you mentioned, it definitely has that wit, that grown-up wit and sort of satire in it. The whole AA meeting for the sharks,
Mm-hmm. Winking at
um,
the parents in the
yeah,
audience. Yeah.
Darla, and flush down the toilet.
All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The fish tank in the dentist's office.
Mm-hmm.
It's also got Jeffrey Rush, isn't it? He plays the seagull. Just a little
Of
throw
course
out
it
for you.
does. Yeah.
Um,
What I love as well, what you could have mentioned it a touch there, I guess, is this it really captures the scale of the ocean. Like it almost feels Odyssey
yes,
like
it is.
about the film. It
Mm,
has an epicness, not an epicness in the horrible sense, like an epic poem epicness.
yeah,
But also it's just so quotable. I think this is one of the most
yeah.
quotable Pixar films, and that comes from its
Radical,
hilarity.
dude.
Yeah, there's so many. It's a hilarious one.
Like,
We haven't even got into Dory, and Dory
no.
has kind of been tarnished a little
Spawned a
bit because of
spin-off. Yeah,
overuse. But and actually, to be fair, Finding Dory wasn't that bad a film. To be fair,
I
but
get it. Yeah.
as a Dory character singularly, if you watch that, if this film came out now, this would still be as successful now. And I think there's a few old Pixar films if you brought them out now, they wouldn't have the same impact. This still would be Oscar for best film of the year, biggest animated film of the year. It would still have all that stuff. Those
I think
accolades.
something I wrote as well was characterization, and I guess that covers, Marlin is so distinct, Nemo is so distinct, Dory is so distinct, but then you've got your Bruces and Willem Dafoe. Not is it Willem? Is Willem Dafoe's character, isn't it?
Who's Willem Dafoe in this?
The fish with the broken wing.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I didn't know he
You
played it. Is it definitely Willem Dafoe?
yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah, yeah. I know you mean though. I mean another character you mean.
Yeah, just they're so caricature, but not in a way.
Yeah,
They
you
sort
kind
of
of have
they
to be relatively
yeah
understandable for
they
kids.
pull
You
it
can't be
off,
too
I suppose.
nuanced. Yeah. Um.
Feels right.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
So
it's yeah. I think you're right. Actually, I'm probably been a bit too harsh on this, but it did have that sort of blockbuster feel as well when it came out. I seem to recall that in the cinema. Maybe it was just the time of cinema for kids' films, and there was no streaming. And anyway, yeah.
okay, and then at number 1, this is another tied for first place, which is always a bit of anticlimax. Where like when it's Olympics and they both stand on the top podium, it's a bit.
Yeah,
It's a
whatever.
little bit sad. But this is both my
They
first
probably
place
always
and
sing the
your first place.
British national anthem, wouldn't they?
What? What?
Colonialism
Oh,
and stuff, right? Yeah.
I like the fact that you thought one of them was going to be Britain winning a gold medal. Okay, so
China.
the first, the first place.
Oh, you are sick as a dog.
I am. The first of the two first places goes to
Da,
everyone's
da,
a
da,
winner.
da.
The Incredibles. I mean, you can probably guess them by now. But The Incredibles, which is my
I think
choice.
people were still holding a candle for Cars.
God, they're waiting for God. The Good Dinosaur's not popped up yet. One
It
second.
hasn't.
Any
Oh,
second
rats.
now.
Honourable mentions.
Onward. I thought you might have chucked Onward in your top 10. Didn't you
Oh,
like
it was.
as
I
well?
liked it, but it's not top 10 worthy.
Anyway,
That's one thing maybe we touch upon
go on.
before we dive into this. I do think Pixar's golden age is over, and I'm glad we lived through it. But they do
Done.
feel more commercial ever
Yeah,
since
but
Toy Story
Soul and
3. Yeah, but then
Soul,
Soul, I would say
Inside Out.
Coco and Inside Out, but
Yeah.
those are the only three in 10 years.
For a normal production company, that's a pretty good hit rate,
I know,
actually.
but I wish they hadn't thrown out all the others. Monsters University.
Oh, Monsters University is appalling.
I really liked it first time watching, and you watch it again, and I'm like, why did I enjoy this? This is
Oh, it's
terrible.
awful, awful.
Finding Dory, the cash cow, Anyway.
Anyway, The Incredibles.
The Incredibles.
So, I have this on the top spot only because Edna Mode is the greatest character in Pixar history.
And guess?
No, this is just so cool. Isn't this just the coolest Pixar film?
Yeah.
Super cool. Dash was cool. Every character is cool in this film. Every impact that makes you want to drop your jaw, the sort of in awe of this film works. Also, what I found about this film when I was sort of having a little bit more of a think about it is how perfectly crafted this film is. This is so streamlined. No fat at all on this film. It moves super fast. I mean, if only superhero films now would take a lesson from this frigging film. Like,
So can I just
good.
point something out about that? Both films are directed by Brad Bird.
Yes, I didn't know that.
So I think that's quite apt. That's a bit of a.
Well, we haven't said what the other one is. No,
but talk on craft. I think.
I thought you were going to say talk on crack. Then go on and soliloquy about
crack.
Oh yeah.
It is incredibly well crafted. It's action packed.
Mm-hmm.
It goes up in scale every time, from low level, freezing the cop, to fighting the bot, to the epic climax. The villain feels really perhaps what Wally's villain lacks is that it feels like the villain is also a mirror of society as a whole, but it is also a really strong villain in its own right.
And then the whole society, the whole part, how clever is that? About he saves someone and he sues them, and
genius.
That's just perfect. That's so well done. Also, what this film does amazingly well, which other superhero films struggle to do, because you can't be heavy-handed with it, is you have to have a hero who's a superhero, so you've got to admire them, but they also have to have moments where they are not the most powerful person in the room, and they do that in this film perfectly. There's moments where the lead is just constantly like getting destroyed, like against the big robot gets destroyed. He can't do it without his family, but he still feels like a valid superhero in his own right.
I think he's because he's the archetype of the strong man, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? And we sort of, perhaps not now, but there's this idea of epitomizing strength, and to be strong, physically strong, is the only strength you need. But this film kind of flips on its head and says, actually, there's worth in everything. You can lift up a house, but can you,
wait, go on.
lift up yourself?
No, Jack's awesome.
You love Jack.
That's the best DVD extra, I think.
Yeah.
Discovering that when I was a child.
Jack Attack.
That. Yeah, and how it works in with the film with the whole voicemails, and also just seeing the characters in society again, like the idea when he's in his cubicle and he strangles his boss and punches him through the wall. Like, that's just brilliant. Oh, and then Frozone, like, come on, he is cool.
Honey, where is my super suit? Why do you need to know? I am your wife. Honey, the world is in danger. Your marriage is in danger.
How you got? Yeah, I mean that's another point of just how it blends superheroes, and it uses the juxtaposition of a superhero in normality, in real situations, and then finds humor in them. Perfect finds humor.
And you never see her. She's always off screen. She's like the Tom and Jerry sort of voice in the background. Again, brilliant.
Anything more to add on this? I guess the family element is key to this, and that's something when I have a family and I want to show these. For all the best ones of these, I just get excited the idea of showing them to my children. I think that's the best accolade you can give these sort of films.
I think as well, I know we haven't talked about sequels, but we did mention it with Toy Story. The sequel for this actually works and is really strong, and I don't think you would have had such a success without this film. I
love the sequel.
Again, each character kind of explored in more depth, more fun. But every character, I feel like, again, you say, showing it to your kids, it's probably one of those films you relate to on different levels. Like, we kind of longed to be Dash.
Mm.
When this film came out, I can now look back and think actually, if I'd been 15, I probably would have got Violet a lot more. And now being an adult, I appreciate both Bob and Helen.
Mm.
Also, when he that was incredible,
Totally awesome. That was totally
whoa,
another quotable Pixar film, as
yeah.
all the best ones are. Okay, let's get to the top spot. If you haven't worked it out by now, it's Ratatouille, which Dan has talked
Why do
about.
they call it Ratatouille? Sounds like rat and patootie, and nobody wants to eat rat patootie.
So Dan, why is this? Why was this at your number one? Oh, where did you put Incredibles, by the way?
4. I probably.
I had this number 4 for me as well.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I probably would swap some things now looking at it, but there you go.
There you go.
You always argue me around, and then I go back to this default. So,
And the list is now invalid. Okay, so I mean,
you win.
This is taking the Pixar-ness of what's the most likely thing we can do right here to the nth degree. It's okay.
Correct.
We need a cook. What's the last thing that could be a cook? A rat.
A rat.
Go make a film.
Go.
Rat bird. Yeah.
I think this is really beautiful as a film. Before you dive into the story and what happens, I think it's a really beautiful film. The soundtrack that captures sort of that French sort of idyllic kind of the beauty, the
Camille, don't they? You know, that gorgeous French artist. She comes up and pops them in places. I mean, this is another one that is just well crafted. Like, this is extremely well made film. Very, very well made.
And I always think of that bit where he climbs up from the sewers, and it always I always think it's further on in the film than it is, but it's actually incredibly early. But he like climbing up the pipes, and it's building, and it's that sort of crescendo building, and then you realise he's under.
You would do Saturday Night Fever then.
I did feel a bit. I'm sort of hearing it in my head, and he goes through the houses, and you see, and he could steal the food, and it's all that whole sequence. It's the sequences in this film really work.
I think you can imagine when it's storyboarded, they're just like, can't wait to get to that bit, can't wait to get to that, and the use of animations to show sensory experiences. Very, very, very good.
Very clever. Good. I think it sort of is right as well. How when he eats the cheese and the strawberry together, like that feels correct somehow. I don't know how it is because it's not, but it is. And
they're a perfect fall for one another. And I mean, we sort of said they're not as good a double actors. Mike Wazowski and Sully, but I mean, they are very good double act. They're a perfect fall. Like, one needs the other to get to the kitchen, and then Linguini needs Remy because Linguini's terrified, he's tentative, and Remy's brave, and like, why can't we do this? And that's perfect, sort of double sided to how a child might feel. Do you know what I mean? So it can. It's a great film for morals for children and stuff. And Remy essentially is a dream, isn't he? Like, follow your dream. And it implode by, is it Gusteau who said anyone can cook? This mantra going through the film. It's very well delivered.
I'm glad you mentioned him because perhaps the greatest thing in this film is, of course, the villain.
Exceptional villain again. Peter
O'Toole.
Anton Ego. Yes, very, very good villain.
In many ways.
One of Pixar's best scenes, I think, the final review of the restaurant.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, chokes you up. We watched it the other week. On New Year's Day, actually, we watched Ratatouille, and it always captures me. And that whole spin, not anyone... I finally now understand what Gusteau meant. A great artist... Not everyone can be a great artist, but a great artist can come from anyone. You're like, that's what he meant. You knew that already, deep down.
And also, what I love about this film is they got it right. So they got it so right. First time, there's never been any murmurs of a sequel. No need. No. It's perfect.
It ends.
Maybe I should put this above Soul. It probably is better than Soul, to be honest. But you know what I mean? It's so well done. My only mini criticism is it loses me a little bit in the middle. Okay. In the middle, it loses me a touch. It starts so strong. It ends so strong. And I just think the romance bit, I don't really care about the romance bit.
I think I really like it because it's that kitchen.
Because he looks like you.
Thanks. No, they capture something of the kitchen. And there's that line, isn't it, where she's talking about the kitchen and she says, we're not just cook. We're not just mere cooks. We are pirates, artists. And I like that, rogues. And I like that idea that actually, that is kind of what cooking is. And we love the bad boy of the kitchen, Marco Pierre White, but we've always loved kind of indulging in those celebrity chefs. And I feel like there is an element of that. If you're really chefing, you're putting your personality on a plate, so you've got to have a personality in the first place to show. And I think they do capture that. And I love Gusteau as this talking head for Remy, as his moral kind of predicament. That feels really fun. And Skinner's a good villain, right?
Yeah, good villain, and the whole idea that he's related to him, it doesn't feel too forced, and it kind of feels kind of believable.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, very good, very nice, and just great idea, fun,
Yeah.
just whimsical, fun idea that is a rat literally under the hat and he's pulling the strings.
Got your dog.
But yeah, very good.
I think one thing we could say about our top 10 list, and I think very few studios and very few directors could say this about their body of work, but a lot of these are, home runs. If not some of them are out of the park hits, but nearly all of them are home runs. Like Monsters Inc. I maybe critique it doesn't hold up as well, but I'm still going to sit down. I'm still going to watch it, and it's still 90 minutes, like the perfect length of film. It achieves everything it needs to do, and it's got two amazing characters. Like, that's my number 10. It's still brilliant.
No, that's true. If this was the resume of any director, then they will be heralded in like top 5 discussions. That sort of brings me on. Like, I like the idea of doing more of these rank series and who could we do? Who could be over top 10? I think once we do the other ones, there'll be very few that can compete with this caliber film. But that's very good.
Honorable mention. You had an honorable mention.
Brave. I had Brave. That was my 10th, but that was very similar to Coco. You like the aesthetic of Coco. I prefer the aesthetic of Brave. That's all that sort of film was. So
that's fair.
I liked that, but I wasn't going to pound the table too hard. Right. Okay. That was our Pixar ranked. Let us know if you agree, disagree, and we'll be back next week for some actual proper films. We're going to be back doing 15 for real. So we'll see you then.
Good night. Bye-bye.